Leprosy has known to be a disease of the skin, but it would better be classified as a disease of the nervous system since the bacterium attacks the nerves. The pathogen that causes leprosy by attacking the nerves is a bacteria called Mycobacterium leprae. It is about 1 to 8 microns long, or 0.3 microns in diameter. This was found on stanford.edu on an online bioclass information sheet. Life history of the pathogen, found on davidson.edu. Outside of host cells, it is difficult for Mycobacterium leprae to replicate. When M. leprae does find a host, it takes about 2 weeks for the bacteria to go through one cycle of replication. The pathogen prefers to choose host cells that are at temperatures below human body temperature, which is why it tends to display itself near the surface of the skin. First, the bacteria binds to the host cell's surface on the receptors. Next, once the bacteria has attached to a receptor on the cell surface, it is phagocytosed or ingested by the cell. Normally, after phagocytosis, bacteria gets killed through the fusion with phagolysosome or digestion by proteases and oxidizing chemicals, but some researchers think that M. leprae somehow has the ability to arrest or stop the lysosome fusion process for 1 to 4 hours to replicate inside the phagosome instead. So basically, the Mycobacterium leprae replicates inside of the macrophages and Schwann cells, so immune cells or the antigen presenting cells don't encounter the antigen. So the immune response is not initiated. So it's a silent infection. Once it's replicated, the copies created hijack more macrophages, and the number of Mycobacterium leprae increases exponentially, and the same process happens when it's being transmitted from person to person. The details of the organism structure. Mycobacterium leprae is a gram-positive bacterium. It is non-motile and acid-fast. It has large waxy walls which restrict the intake of nutrients. This is accountable for the slow replicating time, which makes it really hard for the immune system to fight. Mycobacteria in general have a unique lipid to make up their membranes, which is a distinctive characteristic of mycobacteria. And that lipid is mycolic acid, which are very large lipids with chains 60 to 80 carbons long. The lipids are linked together by covalent bonds, which form a thick surrounding that stays solid at room temperature and creates a shell that repels water, so it's hydrophobic, and it prevents polar molecules, such as germicides used in hospitals, from entering the cell. Mortality rate. Leprosy is not the primary cause of death, but it affects after a long period of time. The effects can lead to death. If you have the disease, your chance of death is 4 times greater than that of the general population. Occurrence in U.S. and world. Leprosy is usually found in temperate, tropical, and subtropical climates. NIH.gov indicates 100 cases per year are diagnosed in the U.S., but more than 213,000 people are infected, mainly in Asia and Africa. HopeForHansons.org indicates that in 2008, roughly 249,000 cases were reported. The period of the disease is about 5 years, but fluctuates from 3 to 30 years. There's no defined time that it will last for. Symptoms. The symptoms of leprosy are pretty harsh. They include primarily affecting the skin and nerves outside the brain and spinal cord, called the peripheral nerves. It spreads to strike the eyes, the thin tissues lining the inside of the nose, hands, feet, face, and earlobes. Disfigurement of the skin and bones, twisting of limbs, curling of the fingers, which makes your hands look like claws. On the face, there's thickening of the outer ear and collapsing of the nose. Lepromas, which are tumor-like growths, which are specific effects of leprosy, they form in the respiratory tract and on the skin, and the optic nerve may deteriorate. Another symptom is loss of pain sensation because of extensive nerve damage, and that's the cause of the most deformities in the long run. Transmission. So, repeated skin-to-skin contact with an untreated person can be the cause of the transmission. Droplets from the upper respiratory tract, such as nasal secretions and mucus, can pass the infectious disease. Historical significance and trivia. So, found on NIH.org, leprosy was first reported in India, China, and Egypt at 600 BC. It was considered a curse of God associated with sin for many centuries before further scientific discoveries were made. Leprosy plays a role in biblical stories, and Jesus was said to have cured people with leprosy, and he was the only one that would touch them. And leprosy it's like it's a bad thing to have. Like, people shun you if you have it. Treatment, prevention, and vaccination. So the first breakthrough occurred in the 1940s with the development of the drug dapsone, which arrested the disease or just stopped it. The duration of the original treatment was like a few years or a lifetime, making it difficult for patients to follow it. So in the 1960s, Mycobacterium leprae started to develop resistance in dapsone, which was at the time the world's only known anti-leprosy drug. In the early 1960s, rifampicin and clofazimine and the other two components of MDT were discovered. So in 1981, a World Health Organization WHO study group recommended multi-drug therapy, which consists of 3 drugs: dapsone, rifampicin, and clofazimine. And the combination of the 3 drugs kills the pathogen and cures the patient. Okay, how the immune system deals with the infection. So, first, the bacteria binds to the host cell's surface on the receptors, and once the bacteria is attached on the cell surface, it is phagocytosed or ingested by the cell. After phagocytosis, bacteria gets killed through the fusion with the phagolysosome digestion by proteases and oxidizing chemicals. Again, I've already said this. The Mycobacterium leprae has the ability to arrest or pause the lysosome fusion process for 1 or 4 hours, so that it tricks the immune system. It makes it a silent infection. So basically, Mycobacterium leprae manages to avoid the immune system through its unique life cycle by replicating only inside of macrophages and Schwann cells. Most phagocytes and antigen-presenting cells don't encounter the pathogen at all, and this lack of meeting causes a stop. It's it doesn't make the immune response happen, so it stays mainly silent. That's it.